We're live. Hi, welcome to Draft Stack with Kyle. Got Jordan, got Jacob. What's going on, guys?
What's up? What's up?
What's up?
So today we're covering top wings in the 2025 NBA draft class. It should be a good show as they've been the last few times. I'm gonna cover some guys that maybe not so many people are paying attention to in here. Maybe some people who have been paying attention. And granted, guys, wings and forwards are not the same. So
Yeah, there will
please
be
bear
a
with us.
few.
um, but we'll be covering them both. And if you don't hear some names, that's why. Um,
Yes,
so Khan is first.
Con
Yeah.
Knipple.
Um,
Obviously, he was the unanimous best wing in this class among all three of us. We didn't include him last time for the guards. I think we could have included him.
mm-mm.
I don't hate that we didn't include him because
And to
go
be
on, go on.
clear, yeah, to be clear, because we included Trey in the guards, we didn't re-include him in the wings. So that will be one thing that I think some people will be a little confused about. So
Right. Who wants to take Khan, or at least the first stab at it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can go. Khan is probably one of the. I think he's the third most ready NBA player in this class. If I had to guess, behind Cooper Flag and VJ and Dylan Harper, I think he's ahead of VJ Edgecombe. Um,
mhm.
I think what Khan does is that he's just a very composed player when he plays. You can see it. Like he processes the game at his own speed. He plays like that as well. And although he's not the most athletic guy, he has a really strong mind muscle connection that kind of just allows him to do what he wants and make smart decisions. I think he does a really good job of combining his ball handling and footwork just to create space for not just himself, for others. His floor is also just immediately so high because he can space the
Mhm.
floor so well, and he is so good off the catch and shoot. And I know a lot of people are very scared of the athletic limitations, but I was like just going through his combine numbers. Like some his lateral quickness wasn't good at all. That was pretty poor. But everything else he tested pretty fine. Like the
Like he was like
vertical,
Cooper Flag level of shuttle run. He had, like I mean, so he's up there in almost everything.
yeah, he had a higher
Um,
vertical than Ace and Flag.
yeah. So I mean, the athleticism definitely side to side is the issue, and that was the issue. I also wonder how functional his athleticism is when
Mm.
you're actually talking about, if we're going to talk about weaknesses. Um, but man, if those are your only weaknesses, like he does a whole lot of other stuff. So like, I think he's probably going to get picked on a little bit in the playoffs on defense.
Agreed.
Every
Agreed.
everything else is not a weakness.
I mean,
Like,
it lateral quickness is something that I think can be improved upon,
mhm,
especially with younger prospects. Now, granted, are the whether the refs are going to blow the whistle or not is a completely different conversation
yeah,
to have.
yeah,
Mhm.
But if he can just be lateral with his positioning, if he can be upright defensively, I think he improves his floor so much. But the shooting, the poise, um, he shot a really good percentage from three. In fact, have it here 39.3, which is unreal for his usage rate if you consider what he was used as at Duke. And then I
hmm
guess some of that usage rate went up because Flag was out for a little bit. Um,
Mhm.
so I'm going to assume uh, the the assist will likely go up in on the pro level because he might have the ball in his hands a little bit more. I'm sure that people are going to make a deal over the turnover percentage, which to me, if I think we talked about this with Casper's, we're talking about a wing here. So his ability to carry to have the ball in his hands is something completely different measurement wise versus what we expect from a point guard. Just to put that out there.
Yeah,
Um,
he's definitely more of a secondary ball handler to me. Like I don't think
yeah.
like compared to Kasparis, like Kasparis needs to have the ball in his hands to be effective. I don't think the same thing for Khan.
right.
I almost don't want the ball in Khan's hand as much. I was just looking for this stat. Um, so James Plowright on Twitter went through and tracked every one of his threes, and this is a little concerning. Um, dribble jumpers, he only shot looks like 14 dribble jumpers the whole year. And of those 14, 8 of them were contested, and he shot 36% on those. On the open dribble jumpers, there were 6 of them, and he only hit 1 of the 6. And then step backs, he only shot 6 step backs. He made 2 of the 6. So everything he does is catch and shoot from 3. Now, inside the arc, he gets to his dribble, and he does that a lot more. But when we're talking about from outside the arc, it's a lot more of just catch and shoot, not necessarily creating it for himself, which is fine to me. I do think that you need that to grow if you want him to take on more point guard duties. But I really think he's sneaky good in the pick and roll, especially like getting into the lane.
He's very functional in the pick and roll. He reads the help defender very, very well.
Agreed.
And as a secondary or even tertiary creator in some lineups, that's going to be nasty. Like, he can just he's so effective without the ball, and then he can get the ball, pump and drive, and then your defense is already messed up, and he's good at that already. So then you're having a messed up, out of shape defense with something that he's got as a strength. So offensively, he's a very good prospect.
And it's to wonder if he shifts some of that catch react, if he adds mid range as far as an element where he's not driving all the way to the cup every single time, but that he uses it as a wrinkle so that they can't key on him so many. There's ways for him to get buckets. I'm intrigued to see what they use him as, because I think there's so many offenses set up to have their shooters freed up. And I think, Jordan, you may have said his comp could have not so much the range as far as ceiling people, just a disclaimer, but that movement and usage wise could be used like Klay Thompson, whose best game.
So my comp for him is actually, he's a taller JJ Redick. Like,
I like that.
He is, as far as that gets you the secondary creation, that gets you the pick and roll ability, that gets you the ability to make a decision once he's done the pump fake, while also still being the elite shooter. That to me is the role he's going to play, is the JJ Redick role. And when I said that, and I got so much pushback, that was when I realized how young of these people that we're arguing with online are, when they didn't watch JJ Redick, so they don't realize how good JJ Redick was. Because
he was not just a shooter coming out.
He was not just a shooter. Like, he did so many other things, and then was also an incredible shooter on top of it. So I just really think that there are some things that Khan can do with also being taller, where you can hide him, where the lateral mobility is not going to be as much of an issue. I haven't even really thought about this. I meant to put this in his notes. Where do you think is a good fit for him?
I was about to ask the same exact thing. I think
he seems to fit on every team.
I was about to say, I think he fits on a lot of teams. If I'm Philly, I'm really seriously considering taking him. Even though I think that a McCain, Knipple, and Maxey lineup would probably cause some problems on the defensive end, considering none of them are pretty tall or long.
Right.
I think New Orleans is a very intriguing place, just because
that's where I was thinking.
You can get on-ball reps right away. You can also play a little bit off-ball with like all the wings they have, in like Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, Zion. If he is playing, we don't know yet.
Oh man, he would feast with Zion in the pick and roll. Yep. Oh my word, they would murder teams. I think you also have to look. So Utah is a little weird of a fit, just because I don't think they have the point guard there. But if so, I would. That's the only team in his range that I kind of wouldn't want him to go to.
I don't know if I would want him in Charlotte either.
Really, because I think he would fit really nicely next to LaMelo. Like, I get that the defense is a little bit of a concern there, but the offense of having, him get the ball in rotation from LaMelo and having Brandon Williams spacing.
He's a very good foil to LaMelo. I think the defensively would be too bad. I'm too wary on that.
Well, I mean, everybody's bad at defense in Charlotte, so he fits in, I guess. But they're like the anti-Mavericks.
And that
Nick.
to me is the you're not. This goes back to positional fit. This goes back to what a team needs at the spots he's slotted to. To me, there are a few teams that they do need shooting. Granted, I thought there were going to be some teams lower down that were going to trade up to get shooting. Granted that they have a team around that can defend at a clip where they don't have an ability to, as you mentioned, they can hide him a little bit more because you're surrounding him with defenders. It's to be seen where I feel like he can't go lower than 8, in my opinion. I don't think he goes lower than 8.
Definitely not lower than 10. Definitely not lower than 10. There's like Houston is taking him, and if not Houston, whoever Houston is trading that pick to is taking him.
Which we don't know if they'll move that. And that, to me, I still think technically they still need shooting. And if he's available at 10, I do think they take him. So that was one of the things.
Especially at that size. They need shooting at that size.
Right, exactly. So he's an interesting prospect from the position that he just isn't, as I think Jacob mentioned, he's just not the most athletic you're not expecting him to dunk the ball. You're not expecting him to just do things by force, but he's crafty. I think he's a really smart player. I also think that his pacing is one of the things I like a lot. He doesn't get, hurried as much. And I think
I'm not saying this will happen, but how surprised would you be if the Spurs take him instead of Harper? I'm not saying that will happen, but
so as a disclaimer,
because it's the Spurs. But no, I'm not saying he's a better prospect, but also I'm saying it's the Spurs, and they have never really cared about the board as much as fit.
No.
So if there's a team that's willing to pass on Harper, I think San Antonio is the team, and the fit is amazing. So I'm not saying for sure that I would do it. I'm not saying that I think it's even highly likely, but there's enough warning bells for me that maybe he could go as high as 2.
So my response to that is, while you mentioned the history here, the Spurs pick who they want. They're not going to pick. I mean, I think the only consensus that we would even mention is Wemby and Victor Wembanyama, and that just makes sense. Like,
they were just clearly the best.
Right. In this regard, if you consider that they have 2 point guards on the roster already, and they do need shooting to space the floor, and I think they have the defensive, players around to slot him in, it could make sense. But someone would argue, if you're not going to use the number 2 pick to get Harper, trade back 2 spots.
You
trade back 3 spots, maybe. I can't imagine that if they have the number 2 pick that they're going to pick him, because honestly, and granted, again, we've already stated that they don't care about the board as much. But to me, I think just the way that everything works, as far as when you pick a player at a particular spot, I think they would end up trading back and getting him versus picking him at 2. I will say, like, even Harper Jonathan is the second best player in this draft class. There's no way they pick Khan. And granted, again, if you're just coming on, we're not this is a disclaimer. We're not saying that Khan should be picked ahead of Harper. We're just saying that
that's not what I'm saying.
The Spurs at number 2 aren't 100% sold on picking Harper at number 2 and could trade back to get somebody else. That's just what we're saying here.
I will say that Jonathan Givony kind of soft launched that as a possibility a few days ago, and I've been thinking about it ever since. And I don't know, because the Spurs pick who they want. I mean, they drafted Kawhi way ahead. They drafted DeJounte Murray ahead. They drafted White ahead of where he was on boards. Like, that's just what they do. And more often than not, it works out for them. So I'm not like, that's the other thing.
I mean, they do great scouting, right? So that's just what we're going to credit this to.
So
they don't hit on every pick.
I mean,
No
yeah,
one's
they
gonna
had,
bat
they
100.
had what's called,
Yeah.
they had that Blake Wesley draft. They did not, besides for Wemby, they didn't hit in that draft.
Yeah. And so I'm not saying for sure that they do it, but I'm just saying if that happens, there's going to be a small part of me that's not surprised that that happens. Um, honestly, I think you're also kind of maybe doing backflips in Philly if that happens. But that is what it is.
So we have the next, and this is just our list. Whatever your list looks like. I just think these are our wings, and that we think are top. So next here is Nick Clifford. I can take that if you guys don't mind.
All you.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
gonna need a minute. The buses just sold the Lakers, so I'm gonna need a minute to. Apparently, the Bus family is entering an agreement to sell their majority stake of the Lakers to Mark Walter. Yeah. Anyway,
Wow.
that's more surprising than any trade ever.
that is
I had no idea that the
me. What
Lakers
is
were
going
even
on?
thinking. I'm so confused.
Wow.
I think that's more confusing.
I mean,
That's more
so- I'm
shocking than
shocked.
the Luka trade. That's
I'm floored. The Bus family is really selling.
like
What is happening this summer? Okay, let's get.
wow.
We're gonna try to pivot back here. Nick Clifford.
Is this a new CBA? Like she just did
I have
not
no
want to pay the
idea.
price of Luca in the extension? Like
I have no idea.
that's the first thing that comes to mind.
We're never gonna really find out what happened with this until 6 months from now, and I think this is more of a business thing more than anything else,
Yeah.
and a different maybe a pivot in direction. We'll see what that looks like. Nick Clifford.
Yeah, Nick Clifford. Wow.
Nick Clifford. Keep y'all, keep your notifications on, people. It seems like all kinds of crazy things are happening. And we've barely gotten started, and the finals are not even over yet. So
Yeah.
Nick Clifford, Colorado State, 6'6", decent wingspan. He's pretty versatile on defense. I do think his spot up consistency could probably be a little bit better. Handle under pressure could be a little bit better. I think that's going to be the thing that raises his floor and ceiling here.
Mm-hmm.
But he did average 18.9 per 9 points per game. He had 9.6 rebounds per game. He averaged 4.4 assists. 3-point range was 37.7. He shot 77.7 from the free throw line, and his true shooting was 60.9%. I'm not gonna lie to you. There's a reason he's number 2 here. The true shooting and the usage rate, just based off the usage rate, that's insane. To be honest with you, if you're into advanced stats, shooting 60% is nuts. So
extremely high usage.
Right. So the assist thing is because the turnover rating was about 2.6, but I think some of that just has to do with him needing to tighten up the handle a little bit more.
And I also think some of the watching the tape, some of those turnovers aren't his fault.
Yeah, he's playing for a non-Power 5 team. Like, there's gonna be a lot of mistakes that don't happen on the NBA level. He's also just not gonna be that type of engine on the NBA level at all.
Exactly.
Like
that's what I have in my notes.
Yeah, you're not asking him to be your primary ball handler or playmaker. You're asking him to be kind of a connective piece. Like, he'll initiate plays, but he's not this all otherworldly passer or ball handler. I think the ball handle is a little bit loose. I think that he probably relies on his footwork a little bit too much to create space.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that.
I think this is probably another good place to point out. I'm already down to 18 on my board with Nick Clifford. He's clearly the second best wing for me, and it's already at 18. We've already left. There's no lottery. Khan's the only lottery level wing or Trey, if we're counting Trey. Everybody else is a bigger forward. So this class is very weak on the wing class, but he's very good for this weak class. And yeah, there are problems with him. The red flags is the age and the turnovers.
24. Yeah.
That being said, like, to me, Neek could have come out last year. He came back. He didn't necessarily get like insanely better, but he didn't get worse. Like, to me, he's been NBA ready for 2 years. Like, I'm happy to get him off my bench. I think he's a very good defender. I don't think he's like necessarily an elite, like lockdown defender, but I think he's a very good defender. He's obviously an incredible athlete. He's got very good size for playing a 2 guard, 3 role. He's got good size. I think he's also very good at being like a third playmaker instead of the first option.
Primary. Yeah.
I think that'll be very. He's an excellent rebounder for his size. I just think you're really going to get a lot with him. And if you're a team that likes selling tickets and stuff, the dude is a highlight. He's gonna have some dunks that are gonna be highlight dunks, and your team's gonna be very excited for that.
And I think just you mentioned the size. If his ceiling is elite 3-and-D player, you're not mad at it because you didn't pick him at 15. You didn't pick him at 14. You picked him below the lottery, which again, there's nothing wrong with not being a lottery pick. I think people kind of make a deal. Don't get me twisted. I'm not saying lottery picks should be lottery picks. I'm saying the idea that every prospect you like has to be a lottery pick is insane because there's only 15 spots. And really,
that being said, if you want to draft him at like 12, I'm not going to complain about him as the 12th pick in this draft. Like, I do think that this draft gets really flat after a certain point. And so I'm not going to complain about somebody drafting the sure thing, the high floor guy at 12. And if you want to do, if you just say we're not wanting to do the risk, I'm a little bit more wanting the risks higher up on my board.
Yeah,
I'm okay. Yeah. I want the higher upside. But if there's a team that just says, hey, maybe San Antonio with their second pick at 14, if they want to do Neek Clifford, for sure.
which works because we talked about the shooting. And granted, I do think, again, his shooting needs to be better. Yeah. But he's the type of player, maybe they bank on a age-ready guy than they do picking Noah, for instance, which there's been kind of noise around that being the pick at 14.
Or even
Carter Bryant.
Yeah, Carter Bryant. But I'm even Atlanta. He's a good fit in Atlanta. I think that he would fit excellent in Atlanta. So there's a lot of late lottery teams that I could definitely see him going to, where I think that's an excellent pick. Now that being said, team right outside the lottery, I think is by far the best fit for him, and that's Kyle's Miami Heat.
Which he's been slated to, because that just makes sense if you're not going to go guard here, right? So, and I've been looking at picks, I've been seeing what fits, not to rhyme, but I think if you're going to go with a guy who's ready, I think they've needed shooting. I think they needed rim pressure, and I think they wanted a guy who they don't have to necessarily redshirt the first year and mold. He's played all. If I'm correct, he's played almost all 4 years.
Yeah, he's played every. Yeah, he's a very Miami fit. Very Miami.
Yep.
So that just makes sense in my opinion.
Definitely fits the culture too. I mean, he's a hard worker. It looks like. I mean, super athletic. Really cares about his body.
And I even thought Cavaliers possibly if he doesn't end up getting picked at 20, the Cavs wouldn't hurt having him on the roster.
Would you be surprised if he ends up being a top 10 guy in the draft when this is all over?
No,
I totally. Yeah.
What were you going to say?
Throughout the year, I've had him top 10. I think he's been top 10 for me since probably November. I have him at 10 right now, but at one point I had him at 8, and I seriously considered putting him at 7, I think, around February. The only reason I didn't was just because of the upside standpoint. If a guy's a top 7 pick to me, he has to have that star upside. But I just think Neek is just very safe. He's just very safe. I think that he's going to return a lot of value on wherever he's picked.
Again, and maybe I'm going to harp a little bit here. But if a player is coming out of college and they're shooting 60% true shooting, and
he doesn't only shoot at the rim, like
right. He does take a
He's
considerable amount of threes.
Mhm.
So if the true shooting, which means decision making, and to your point, I think the Heat are a really cerebral type of team. They're going to want to pick a guy who is going to think about their shot. Now, granted, I'm going to leave that alone. Anyway, I was going to go somewhere and I'm going to let it rock. But I do think there are quite a few places that could use him. My comp for him is Jalen McDaniels, which I think is a possibility. You guys talked about the ball handling. You talked about maybe not being a primary.
I went more with guard, and I said Keon Ellis.
Okay.
So I think he's a better shooter than Keon Ellis. But I think that's the role of, he's going to be the kind of like not the lead ball handling guard, but he's going to be a guard who's there. He's going to be used for his shooting, but it's defense that he's going to hang his hat on. But yeah, I think he's a little bit taller than Keon too. I think Keon's only like 6'3", and so or 6'4", and he's 6'6". He's a legit 6'6". So
I really have a taller Bruce Brown.
Okay.
Yeah. See, so we're all in that defense mode, but more towards the rim than just shooting, but can still shoot. So we're all similar. That's what his game is. Okay. I think it's very interesting to compare him to our next guy, because Coward is the hot name right now.
Cedric Coward.
I'm not going to be shocked if he goes top 7.
Really?
And I don't personally evaluate him that way, but there's so much smoke for him going higher and higher and higher right now that I think he's going to get overdrafted. And that's what. So I have him 21. Like I think he's much more in that range of outcome for this. But I think people have. Yeah, to me, Coward, it's all about his body. He is literally the perfect NBA wing frame. 7-foot wingspan, 6'6", really like stocky 6'6",
jumps out
super, super mobile, super athletic. Had really good stats. He played 6 games. He's injured all the time.
My caveat on that was that the stats are aggregated based on the amount of time he played, which is six games, and the 83.9 from the free throw line is important to me. Just like he's not going to miss free throws that much. I do think his catch and shoot is something that I'm intrigued to see what it looks like on a pro level. That's something that he did a lot in the games he did play. I am intrigued to see about the slashing. And then I think one of the things that maybe doesn't get talked about enough is kind of his footwork with his back to the basket, not so much post up, but mid post kind of facing up and getting guys off balance with the handle. He makes quick decisions with the ball.
This isn't a player comp. This is a situation comp. It's very OG Anunoby. It's very with the injury, like depressing his stock and then suddenly rising up because everybody's kind of like, maybe, it's all about the frame and what he could be. I think it's very similar to OG. That's not his player comp for me. Is actually like Royce O'Neal. Is who I think he plays like. But it's very
a little more athletic.
The situation,
athletic Royce O'Neal.
Yeah, probably a little bit more than Royce. Especially as Royce has gotten more injured. And he's not quite as high jumper as he used to be, and he was never really on Coward's level. Right. That being said, I do think he's lower. That being said, there is one place where if he gets picked, I'm going to throw everything out of the window, and I think he's going to become a star. And if the Thunder pick him,
and I have them as best fit.
If the Thunder pick him, all bets are off. Like he's perfect. Like he's perfect for the Thunder. And he's such a Thunder
15?
pick.
Yeah, I think he gets picked at 15 there, right? That's ideal.
If the Thunder pick him, my whole evaluation's out the window. Like I think they're gonna make him because there's less pressure, but then once he gets in, it's perfect. He's replacing who? Like Andrew Wiggins in their rotation? Like, yeah, he's a better player than Andrew Wiggins. Like, I just think
Aaron Wiggins.
Aaron, yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah. So he's definitely a better fit for what they need. Like, Aaron, to me, needs the ball a little bit more to be as effective. Like Coward, it's the catch and shoot is his bread and butter. And then he loves to play defense. Like as long as he stays healthy, he's gonna have a longer career for sure, unless the health. So everything to me comes back to his healthy valves.
Right. I'm more concerned about how he performed against better competition because he had that drop off. I didn't look at just last year because last year he only played one top 50 opponent. But since he started playing at Eastern Washington, and it was just a significant drop off, like for everything and every major stat. Like his 3-point percentage was only 17% in those games, low assist percentage and a high turnover percentage. So he definitely struggled there. I also see in this game that he does rely on his athleticism a little bit too much to score, especially in a less athletic, weaker conference. Like he does rely a lot on power ups on the wing, a lot of face ups. So I don't know how translatable that is. But yeah, like we said, the catch and shoot, it just makes it so much more appealing, and just the athletic strengths and instincts that he has. I have him right now at 24. I think that he's kind of stuck around that area for me the entire draft. I have him,
and that's where I'm comfortable with him, is in that range. Like I'm very comfortable with him in that range. So it's not like we're all like super low on him,
right?
But I think that the hype has kind of gotten a little out of control.
Now you mentioned the Thunder. Are we surprised if they pick him at 15?
Not at all.
No. I think you go for the fit. He's going to return 15 value for the Thunder. I fully agree. If that fit is so perfect, he's going to return that value. And I think Miami picks him. He's going to return that value for Miami. I think 20%. San Antonio picks him. He's going to return that value at 14 for San Antonio. But there are some of the other teams in that range. I'm just not as sure that he's going to return that value.
When the Grizzlies, the Desmond Bane trade happened, I think Howard was the first guy I thought of for them at pick 16. I think that he'd be a great fit right away. Also, Grizzlies, they just do a very good job of developing these older players. And I feel like he would fit that mold right away. Depending on
and the Grizzlies love to do draft Twitters, darling, every year.
Yeah,
so
they do.
And I think the only question mark I have is if I'm correct, the percentage from 3 is 40%. We don't know if that stays the same on more volume, more games, right? Like it's high because of the amount, the not necessarily the biggest amount. But on 40%, which is insane. If you're just talking about elite 3-point shooters, 40% is crazy. So if he comes out the gate and he's hovering around 40%, to your point, Jordan, that's return on value, because you don't expect a player to immediately adjust to the pro game and immediately shoot 40%. So if he does that on a bigger sample size, then you're like, well, if he had played more games, maybe we would have seen a little bit more of it. So now, granted, do I think it would have stayed at 40%? No. I do think it would have been around 38, maybe anywhere from 37 to 38%. Jordan, you have something you want to tell us?
The Lakers are selling for $10 billion.
Who has $10 billion? All right.
I didn't even know that's a real number. I didn't even know that number, like numbers went that high. Like $10 billion.
For a team, anyway. Yeah.
Oh.
Wow.
Whoa.
It's a Dodgers owner also.
So yeah, it is the Dodgers owner.
He's gonna make that back.
Oh yeah.
Which this moves me to speaking of catch and shoot. Our fourth is Liam McNeely.
Can I say something from the beginning before we really dive into Liam? We all watched Montverde last year.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's the best high school team that's ever been assembled. And Liam, most nights, was the best player on Montverde. So I don't know what to do with his evaluation, because I watched him be dominant on a team with Cooper Flagg and with Derek Queen and with all these. Asanua was coming off the bench, and he was dominant. The most nights he was the leading scorer. I think Queen ended up averaging more points, but most nights it was Liam was the leading scorer. Like, he was dominant. I don't know what happened at UConn. I'm very confused because I really thought that was a good fit for him to go to UConn, but obviously it wasn't.
I don't love the way Dan Hurley used him at UConn. I don't think that he ran him off screens enough. Like
At all.
I thought the way they were going to use him was similar to the way they used Jordan Hawkins and Cam Spencer, where they would just have him run around a million like pin downs, and he'd eventually come off for a shot. But it definitely wasn't like that. Like I feel like most of his shots weren't as fluid off the catch,
right,
as they were in high school. So
yeah, it's well, for one, he actually went to less talent going to UConn, which is insane to think about. But he didn't, he flashed all this like secondary playmaking when he was at Montverde. He was like, they ran the offense through him, and Cooper Flagg and Derek Queen were on the team, and they would run the offense through McNeely. Like, so I'm very confused about this.
Do y'all want to answer this question real quick before we continue on McNeely? Let's pop this here. The question is, out of all the wings on your list, who has the highest or biggest potential to fall in the draft relative to where they are mocked, and the biggest riser? Anybody can take that.
I think biggest fall is definitely harder to predict because I feel like a lot of these wings are in the same tier. That's just my opinion, within the same two tiers. I think if I had to pick a guy that I could see rising exponentially on draft night, I could see Drake Powell, just because I think that he's such a high upside pick, and he did.
And the athleticism,
that natural athleticism. Like teams will always bet on a guy that can jump out the gym and run down the floor in a quick second, and plays with that much strength. He also showed a lot. We'll get to him later in the stream. I'm sure we'll talk about this more, but like he's a natural shooter. Like he just has that 3-and-D appeal that teams look for. So I could totally see him going like maybe mid first, early. I don't know. I can see it. I don't know if he's going to fall past.
I'll give the same answer for both questions. Hugo Gonzalez. I have no clue where that guy's going. And we're getting to him right after Liam, so I'm not going to like go super deep into it. But like, if you tell me he goes lottery, I'm like, yeah, for sure. If you tell me he goes second round, I'm like, yeah, for sure. Like,
range is long.
Such a wide range with him. So I think he's the answer to both questions.
And I think that's a big part. This question is a good question. Thanks for the question. I think one of the things with this question is, with guys continuing to drop out of the draft, somebody's got to move up. And so this is challenging to gauge, mainly from the perspective that guys who may have been picked ahead of some of the guys went back to school. Like that's kind of where we are right now. Like, I don't even know what the second round is going to look like, and if it's even going to be an hour long for them to pick second round picks. I have no idea what the second round looks like as far as prospect selection. However, I do think that this question is nuanced based on adding that aspect to it. And then secondly, also, I think riser is relative to the fact that so many guys who did not know they were going to be first round picks could end up first round picks. Like, there's the potential for that here. So I think that's really, I wouldn't put a name to riser or to faller for real, because I just think that guys are going to move up based on what their skill set is. I think also based on what a team is looking for, basically on having to reshuffle the board a little bit. Maybe they had a guy on the board prior who say, I'm going to go back to school. And they're like, well, we had this guy second on our board. Now he's first on our board. Are we going here or are we going there? So I think there's a lot to be said of what can happen on draft night. I think a lot of movement could happen because not every team seems to be okay with their positioning on selection, and they can move around some things based on cap space. There's a lot of things that are going into this. So granted, now my thoughts on Liam is I didn't like his usage at UConn either. I think his shooting percentage from three was bad because I don't think he was used in the way that he probably would have been optimally used.
I have that in my notes. I don't care about the percentages at UConn. That's not who he is.
I can't imagine that's
not who
really
he is.
What he is, because he is a much better shooter than what I thought. I thought his best skill was catch and shoot, and even on that, to me, some of that was 37.6 on a better average. So it ranged a little bit as far as I'm concerned, I just think his defensive consistency probably needs to increase a little bit more. And we talked about lateral quickness with Khan earlier. I think that has to happen here. Also, I think they wanted him to create off the dribble. That is not his biggest strength. I think that's something that needs to improve. I think it will improve depending on where he's slated. I think he could end up on any team. Honestly, I don't see him in the lottery, so just to put that out there. But I do think he's a value pick from the perspective that you're going to get shooting from him. I do think he could finish through contact a little bit more. Warriors, Kings, maybe as best potential fits, just because of the shooting.
Orlando.
Yeah, and also like the Kings, which the Kings traded their offensive coach, went to the Mavs, but the handoffs with Sabonis and him, that would be pretty nasty.
Now, Gordon, that's if Sabonis is still a King.
That's true. So, you know what? Mavs, trade in, get a second pick, draft McNeely. Him and Cooper are going to be good together. Do handoffs with him and Lively, handoffs with him and AD. There, I saved your offense. So, you hire me.
And 86.6 from the free throw line, might I add?
He's a shooter. He's a shooter. The numbers in UConn are hiding the fact that he's a real shooter,
which is unreal to me. I mean, it was 14.5 points per game, 6.0 rebounds, 2.3 assists.
What was the actual 3 percentage?
36.7.
So I mean, it wasn't terrible. It wasn't terrible, but he's a much better shooter than that.
But against the top, I think against the top 50, it was at 31.7, which is
he did big time. He did big time against top 50. He only shot 25% against them.
Mm-hmm.
So in that range there.
But he also when his shooting did dip against top 50 teams, he was more of a better playmaker, I guess. His assist percentage definitely went up.
Yeah, he's a real secondary creator. With the ball in his hands, he's very good at making the smart pass. If a teammate is open, he will find them. So that is something that, again, if you want to look at what his NBA role is, really weird to say that his NBA role is going to match more his high school than his college, but it really is. Because I don't understand. Because Dan Hurley's a good coach, so I don't understand what happened.
Too many bodies to consider, in my opinion.
Yeah, I guess.
Could have been the overall.
I don't think they didn't realize that Caravan was going to come back, maybe, or no, not Caravan. What's his name? Was coming back right at the end. So that's I don't know, man. It's weird. I don't understand.
They made it. If you consider just tournament run, they made it where people thought they were going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
I think some people. I wasn't one of them. However, I do think some people thought they were going to win the whole thing. I figured they would run into a much better team at some point, and it just would be clear that there's a better team on the floor than them. To that credit, it happened that way. So there's only so much, and tourneys are weird to gauge, in my opinion. Just me personally here throwing it out. I've always felt like they're weird, mainly because how ready this player is rhythm wise is going to determine what they look like the entire tourney.
And he never got a chance to get a rhythm.
And from game to game, it's really difficult. You could have a great game, one game in the tourney, and then next game, they've run film, they've seen what you did the last time. Now they're running you off the 3-point line. And if you don't have a drive game, now you're driving, or you're having to make passes that you don't typically make. So there's all these different factors that factor into that. I just think it's intriguing. I do think he's late first, in my opinion.
If he falls to the second, I will be rioting for the Mavs to get a second round pick.
I don't think he's gonna fall. There's
no way to me. You bet on what he did at high school, because again, there were nights he was better than Cooper Flagg. There were nights he was better than Derek Queen. There were nights most nights he was better than Austin Newell. That team was the best high school team ever, and he was the engine a lot of the time. The offense worked because of him.
It lets you know how different things can change from high school to college and then college to the NBA. So our next player is a question mark for all of us because we're not really sure where he's going to end up, and that's Hugo Gonzalez. Now, I tried scouting just for disclaimer, he played for Real Madrid. So
Played is kind of a
relative here.
misnomer.
He participated.
He was there.
He sat on the bench for Real Madrid.
He was on the team. He has shown the ability to be athletic, for my opinion.
Yeah.
6'7". I think his wingspan 6'11".
Yeah. Beautiful measurements.
Defense, perimeter defense is his best skill. I have the stat here. 0.782 points per game allowed, like when he's the primary defender.
Yeah,
which is that's unreal in the minutes.
Well, and then European offensive players are just not ready for someone to be that good on defense.
And at 6'7",
and that young, because they think he's food because he's young.
Not the best shooter at this moment.
What was the actual percentage? Because I didn't write that down.
30%. I could be wrong. Maybe someone has a different stat. Jacob, do you see?
Oh yeah, we try finding.
And then, do you know what his free throw was off the top?
Ooh, I think it was 76.
Because I thought his free throw was pretty promising. If I'm remembering correctly.
I got his free throw in 56 games. Shot 27.8 from 3 and 75 from the line.
That's what I thought. Okay.
I think
Spurs
looking at the jump shot. Yeah, Spurs. Yeah, for sure. Looking at the jump shot, I do think that there is some promise in the actual form of the shot.
Agreed.
I also think at the lower levels, if I'm remembering correctly, he was a much better shooter at the lower levels. So I'm wondering if the not getting minutes and not getting consistent minutes affected the shooting.
Large possibility for the yes on that. And I do just not to interrupt you. I'll just throw this here. I do think he needs to read pick and rolls a little bit better. Not his strongest suit at the moment. I think there's room for improvement. But he doesn't read the pick and roll as smoothly as possible. Jordan, do you want to take this question actually in reference?
Sure. Do you think the Raps are taking him?
Like, no, who do you think the Raptors?
Oh, who do I think the Raptors are taking?
Yeah,
I think they want Malawach. I don't think he's going to be there anymore.
I agree.
So that's
no.
I don't think Malawach is going to make it to the Raptors. But I think that's who they want. Man. Okay.
I remember
notes.
I remember saying to you, I had him going to the Pelicans.
Yeah.
Just because of, and granted, we've discussed that that's a possibility. It could also, he drops below that.
I think Charlotte could do Malawach at 4. Like that's such a good fit for me that Raptors, I think I could see him going that high. Raptors, I'm looking at
Senge is interesting. I would look at Senge. He'd probably
that's exactly who I have.
He'd probably be one on my board for Toronto because I don't think Malawach is going to be there.
Yeah,
but I think it's
my latest mock draft. I have Senge.
It's a perfect fit. The perfect fit. You get to sit behind Scotty and Bi for a year or two, and then gets to fill his role. And he's like that long, lengthy wing that's able to run in transition and is a proven athlete that Toronto loves so much.
In a world where Senge is gone,
I have a swing for. Well, you had Rasheer, but I was thinking they take a swing on Beringer.
Yeah.
What about
Newell? I do like that too. Newell, I could also definitely see them if they want to go big, especially if they seem to be willing to part on Pirtle.
I think they want to move off in this offseason.
So to be honest, I think Beringer could be it because just now, granted, I'm
lower on Beringer than most other bigs, but
I hate the use of the term unicorn because not everyone can be. However, I do think he's the type of prospect that is extremely interesting, mainly because of when he started playing basketball, his athleticism and just the he is a high. I think the ceiling is high just from the physicals perspective and what he's been able to show in just a short period of time of adapting to basketball. I also think there's the possibility where this is really determining where he ends up. Raptors love guys like him, just long, rangy guys who are athletic. And they make he seems to cut really well from the tape that I've watched. So I think that's probably who if I had to give you an archetype, I just think that the Raptors end up picking somebody who's long and rangy, and has some defensive upside because they love guys who play defense. So I think that's kind of where. I'm not sure where they'll pick second round because and if you weren't on before, I discussed it just briefly. I don't know what the second round is going to look like. I have no clue what it looks like from the perspective of what guys get picked, mainly because the board is completely shuffled, in my opinion. And because so many guys have decided to, head back to school, I couldn't tell you who gets picked in the first round and who gets picked in the second round outside of the top five. Like after 5, I'm completely going to be honest with you. I've been trying to figure out what this looks like as far as a board because of so many movements. Could not make sense of it.
Yeah, it's very difficult.
But we were definitely talking about Hugo here.
There's one thing I want to say before we move off of Hugo. I don't know if you guys remember, he used to play for the Blazers, but Mavericks legend Rudy Fernandez.
Yes.
And I say Mavericks legend because the Mavs traded like most of their bench from the championship team for Rudy Fernandez, and then he went back to Europe instead of coming to play for the Mavs. So Mavericks legend. But that athleticism that I don't know that he's going to be the shooter because Rudy could actually shoot threes. But the athleticism, the defense, the wing size, the being able to do a little bit of point forward stuff at that height, like I do really think that Hugo has all the tools to be that kind of player. And I guarantee he grew up watching Rudy. Like, I mean, obviously Rudy played some of his years at Real, some at Barca. Like he definitely grew up watching Rudy. And you can tell by the way that he plays that he watched him. So,
which, you just talked about tools, and that gives us a perfect way to transition to Drake.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh man.
Jake, you want to take that?
Yeah. I mean, like I said earlier, he's just athlete with ideal size and length. Like he's just very fast. I think he's very strong strides. You see that when he's running in transition. He did have a pretty low load on the offensive end this year and was used kind of as an off-ball scorer. But I think what he did really well is I think he maximized it. I know he got off to a very slow start of the year, but as the year picked up and he got used to UNC's system, he definitely started to thrive a lot more. Like you definitely saw him get into more rhythms as he's like attacking closeouts, he's cutting, shooting off the catch. He definitely improved throughout the season. And when you look at him, he's just a guy like, okay, you think of what he's at right now, where he's constantly getting better and better. He's a hyper athletic wing who can shoot the ball. What is this guy going to look like in 3 years when his body fills out? He's processing the game at a higher rate with more and more reps. I think that he's the guy that can definitely go much higher than anticipated on draft night. He's also really young, and is just like overall, just these athletes, these athletic wings tend to go pretty high in the draft, and they tend to carve out playing time wherever they go in their NBA systems. So yeah.
I am a little worried. I don't have much to say on him, other than the fact that I'm a little worried that the comp I have for him, the person he reminds me the most of is Justin Anderson, who played a few minutes on the Mavs bench, was a lottery pick, played a few minutes. That was it. Like, I don't even think he made it through his whole rookie contract. And then he's bounced around the G League ever since. I don't think he has a skill that is his that he can bank on. And he's an incredible athlete. He's the defense is there, but I don't know that he's such an elite defender that you can say it's okay for him to be this bad on offense. Like, it's just like I don't really see what in the NBA he does as an NBA guy. And so that's my worry there.
See, so my thing with him is we talked about the defense, and I think that's what his calling card will be at first.
Mhm.
That's what he's going to have to hang his hat on. He has all the tools, as we mentioned earlier. The free throw shooting worries. That's what worries me is the free throw shooting. I think it's around 65%.
Yep.
Got to be higher. I think if he gets it to 75, that could be serviceable, where you're not getting hacked at the line. You to be honest, and just this is just my analysis here. If you're a wing, I don't think a team should be able to hack a foul you. Like, you should be able to put points
Mhm.
on the board from the free throw line and be dependable.
Yep.
And so I think his defense is going to keep him on the floor. I've always one of my things, and I've had conversations with people on different platforms, just that I think for prospects, depending on whether their offense is elite, and it would just have to be elite.
Yeah.
In most cases, the defense from a prospect has to be what they hang their hat on, because no coach, unless he has a very young team, is just going to hand the reins over to your prospect, unless we're talking about a Cooper Flag, a Dylan Harper, and those are very rare cases. You're not doing that off the cuff. So for me with him, people don't crucify me here. He has the potential, and granted, he didn't have the best playoffs, but I would say his ceiling to me is Mikal Bridges, where you're going to get the defense, has all the physical tools to be a good defender and get stops. However, the difference here, and I don't know what happened with McCall as it pertains to leaving the Nets and coming to New York, and just like, to me,
Forgetting
I
how
don't
to
know
play.
if he was the primary offensive guy, but he was a completely night and day player in both places. And so it's to be seen. Speaking of Mikal Bridges, I think the Knicks could pick Drake Powell. I think that's where he could end up, where they add another defender. I do think his ball handling is something that must improve as a wing.
There's so many things that have to improve with him. That's the thing.
Right. Now, some team is going to say defense is enough. We're not worried about the points per game. We're not worried about the assists. Fine. But we are worried about is sliding him into a rotation, seeing if he can fit at a rotation spot eventually, and he's your next best defender right off the bench. In that regard, can he be that? And that's where he starts to kind of fill out the other aspects of his potential. That's a possibility. And I think that's where, now, funny enough, on 37 games, true shooting was like 57.7%. For a guy who didn't average much, I think that's intriguing to me. And it kind of says, well, he doesn't take horrible shots. And I think the 3-point shooting, and Jacob, you could correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's 30, catch and shoot was like 36%, 37.
Let me see for a sec. I have it up. I mean, all his catch and shoot was 100% assisted. So he's just a pure catch and shoot guy. He shot 37.9%.
That's what I thought. Okay. So it's to be seen what he looks like. I think, again, he's going to be picked for the defense alone. And based on, if you just look at the playoffs as a reference here, teams want wings that can defend, knowing that they may not even, now granted, a lot of the wings that have been successful this playoff run are guys who can also shoot the ball. So he's going to have to be really 3-and-D and like key in on shot reps and NBA speed shot reps with closeouts. I just think that's one of the things. And then funny enough, we're moving from one wing where there are some questions on that to another where I've been high on, and I'm not even sure if, I don't know where he ends up. He could end up in the first round. And if I'm correct, it's Jameer Watkins. Which, just like and this is interesting. To me, these guys are comparable, but in different ways. Jameer's 6'7", 6'11" wingspan. He's versatile on defense. The 3-point shooting wasn't great, but it was around 33 or 34%.
Yeah.
Off ball, his awareness could be a little bit more, but I think he was just a much better. To me, I think he was a better defender than Powell.
I think he's also a better offensive player currently
100%.
than Powell.
Agreed. Rim
So-
pressure just withstanding.
Yeah, funny
I
enough,
think he can also create for others, and Powell doesn't do that at all, in my opinion.
I have Watkins at 33 and I have Powell at 34, but my main indicator difference between them is that I have Watkins as my last guy with a first round grade, and I have Powell as the first guy with the second round grade.
Mm.
And
So
I do think
I personally, I think that Powell has more time to figure it out than Watkins. So that's why I have Powell
Agreed.
higher.
Agreed.
I think
But-
that the reason I have Watkins higher is because I think where he's going to go in the draft is
Mhm.
going to be more beneficial to him on a team that's going to need a competitive player from the jump. As a Celtics fan, this is the guy I want. I think that they definitely need another wing where that can actually put the ball on the floor on their roster, especially next year when they're not going to have Tatum. Also, Watkins is just a fallen he does a lot. He's extremely versatile. He's led the Florida State in every single stat past 3 years. He's able to rebound the ball. He
Mhm.
won't be passing at the same level he was at FSU on the NBA level, but he
Right.
can pass in a connective setting enough where it's quick passes off cuts, where I think he could thrive in that. But
We
also-
talked about him in our sleepers, so I don't have a whole lot more to say other than I like him.
Best fit to me, and this is another scary pickup, is I think Thunder.
Yeah,
I think the Thunder could add him to a bunch
quit
of.
helping the Thunder.
and unfortunately, these are the guys that they add, and somebody's like, "How did we let him get to these guys again?"
Yep.
He could fit what they want. He wouldn't have, Jacob, to your point, he won't have to make any decisions with the ball on that team. He'll just defend. I mean, if we're being honest, if I had to compare to a player that they currently have on the roster, he really would just be Cason Wallace.
I was about to
Just
say,
as a
imagine him and Cason Wallace trapping you up court.
Yeah, that's what I was
nightmare.
thinking.
Just
Yeah.
nightmare, absolutely nightmare. He reminds me of a young Nick Batum. I'm not sure if y'all are seeing the old Nick Batum, but
I think he's a little
Nick
shorter than
from
Batum, so that
Yeah.
does make it Batum could actually play some 4-5. I don't know that he can play any 5, but
right,
he can definitely play some 4. So
but young Nick Batum in Portland, if you haven't seen any of the
yeah, you need to
stuff,
watch. Batum's
defensively-
probably a better shooter than I think Watkins ever will be, but
Agreed.
yeah, that's a good role for him. I think some people just forget Batum really could do almost anything. There's very little on a basketball court that Nick Batum couldn't do as a young player.
Agreed. What were you going to say, Jacob?
I was going to say, Watkins, I mean, he's not a great free throw shooter, 74%, but he was really good at drawing fouls. He had a 59% free throw rate. That's pretty good.
He's a big boy.
Yeah,
He's got an NBA body for sure.
Stocky, very stocky.
Yeah, I mean, he's just a guy that is able to do things. So I feel like a contender should definitely I think that this is an easy late first, early second type guy for any contender. Minnesota, I don't think Minnesota should take him. I think LA would be a good fit. Clippers
I think so too.
Oh, Clippers? Yeah, I thought you were meaning the Lakers, and I was just
no,
imagining
no.
Luka just giving him every open shot ever, and I was like, oh man, he'd probably start shooting good.
Which we talked about shooting.
Dorian Finney-Smith is actually another good comp for him, to be honest.
That is a good comp.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued. My thing is, I'm intrigued to see. There's 5 teams I think Watkins fits on. I know we talked quite a bit about him on Sleepers. Pacers, team that's in the finals as well, could add him and it would work.
Yeah, especially with because they have a second or 2 second round picks.
They only have pick 54, I think.
Pick 54.
54.
So
He might be gone by then. I think he'll be gone.
Yeah.
I think
I'd be shocked.
Spurs could pick him at 38, maybe, and just add more defense to that roster, which I think just is insane. And then I think possibly.
Do the Rockets have a second round pick? I can't
I'm
remember.
not sure if they do, but
they did the last pick in the draft, 59. He's not going to be there.
Yeah,
he's not going to be there by then. He's absolutely gone by then. I do think. Jacob, I might disagree with you a little bit here. I think he could end up on the Wolves.
Okay.
just because of the type of player that they like. I think
Yeah, they're also going to need depth behind KD. So
we talked about with Case and Wallace, but I'm thinking about him and Jaden McDaniels. Like scary defensive, the potential there.
Also, he's a different kind of defender than McDaniels. So he gives them two different options.
I also know they're two different players, but because they have Terrence Shannon Jr., I think that also kind of limits what Watkins can do offensively, since they're both such heavy downhill guys.
Yeah.
So I feel like that takes a little bit of value away from him.
Got it.
Yeah, TSJ is going to Phoenix in the KD trade. It's fine.
It's to be seen. It's to be seen. I think we have this
Bryce Williams, right?
Bryce Williams is also a question mark for me, and he's a question mark for me for a lot of reasons. But I'll let you and Jacob kind of figure out who wants to take this.
I also don't have very much for him. I'm very confused about him, like, because it feels like one night you watch him and you're like, this dude is like awesome, and then it feels like other nights he's like completely silent and there's no, like, to me, I definitely can see him almost as like a point forward role, like one of the Champagny brothers. I was kind of surprised that wasn't his last name after watching him. He seems to be like, he can kind of shoot. He's got the really, he's a tall guard, interesting frame. He's got some playmaking, does a little bit of everything, but I don't know that he does anything well enough for me to be like, yes, I have to have him on my team. But I also don't think he does anything bad enough that I'm like, he's not going to be playable either. So it's just like, I don't really know where to put him. So that's all I have to say. Like, I really don't have any. I don't know what to do with him. He's very weird to me.
He's my lowest ranked guy that we're going to talk about today. I am at 49. And he's the only one that I have in like my last draftable tier, in tier 8. I think that, like, I feel like in a couple of years, I'm just going to be poking around in the G League and see that he's averaging like 25 points a game in there. I could totally see that. He does a really good job at scoring in bunches. I think he kind of does have that little grace to his game, that little smoothness that will put him ahead of other guys. He's very savvy. I just don't know if he's the athlete or the defender, or like will handle that NBA physicality enough to the point where he'll be getting actual minutes in the NBA ever.
Yeah, that's he's skinny. He's very skinny.
I think he's just lanky. Apparently, he weighs 217, which
no, he doesn't. There's no way. Did he weigh like? Did he have lead socks on? Like,
I'm checking the combine right now because I don't believe it.
Please, 6'10" wingspan. I do think
he's tall. He's lanky, but I don't know.
Nuggets pick. He's maybe just like.
Well, the thing is, I think every single team can talk themselves into him on it, especially on a two-way.
He weighed 205.
There's no way.
I was off by a bit. Sorry about that.
I mean, he's 6'7", so I feel like it makes sense that he's that. He's also no, he's only 6'6".
Oh, really? I missed that he's shorter.
Yeah.
So wait, is that with or without shoes on?
That is without shoes.
So he's about 6'7" with shoes on.
6'7" with shoes.
Yeah.
I do think 3-point volume is low. He only shot about 32, I think, on the fringe of 32%. Usage rate was 30%. And Jacob, what was his points per game? I think I have it correct here, but I want to make sure before I state it out here.
Hold on, give me a second. Sorry about that.
No,
he averaged 20.4. I think he led the Big Ten this year.
20.6. That's what I thought. Okay, that's what I had here. I was up by 2.2 points. But the thing with him here is, you talked about Drake Powell earlier. Just what is his skill? Clearly, he can score the ball, and it's one of the reasons I said best fit probably is a Nuggets pick. I think he works with the Nuggets. He seems like the kind of player they would draft. Now, granted, I do think the 3-point shooting is something that would have to change for that to be like an effective factor. However, definitely an early, early to mid second round pick. I don't think he goes in the first round. I just think there's some other guys who are better than him.
I could also see him undrafted. Like,
Yeah.
but
It's still gonna contract.
Yeah, I think if he goes undrafted, it's like he's wanting to choose his destination kind of thing.
Yeah. And that, funny enough, this is completely different. We're transitioning here. This is completely different than the next guy.
Oh,
in
yeah.
my opinion, in Kobe Bray. The question marks on him.
Can I read off my notes? My notes are just kind of ridiculous for him. Okay, second best shooter in the class, good size, amazing shooter, poor defender, amazing shooter. Also, did I mention that he shoots? That's what he is.
90% from the 3-point line, from the free throw line, 43.8 from the 3-point line, and his true shooting was 64.6.
Yeah.
Shit, that's ridiculous.
Now the funny thing is his usage rate was under 15%. So it's insane to think about. 6'6", 205. His movement shooting is one of his biggest strengths. I think he's got an odd finishing rate. I'm not sure that he's the best finisher at this stage.
No. I mean, he's got a nice floater game because that's just his natural touch.
Right. But if I had to project him and maybe best fit, I would say Magic, possibly. Jacob, you talked about the shooting earlier with the Magic earlier.
Yeah,
now Magic, I don't know what they're going to do because they just shipped a pick out. So I don't know. Now, granted, he could be in the early second round. Do the Magic have a second round pick? Is the question?
They've been mid second round, 46.
Now,
he could be there.
I like that.
I'm personally much high. I have him at 31. I'm surprised he was this low on our list, just because I think he's such a good shooter.
Agreed.
My question is,
I think for me, it's what he does. What does he do outside of shooting?
Right. But I do think that he does do, like, when he, even without the ball, he does do a lot. Like, he does cut a lot. Most of his points that weren't threes were cuts, and he did make a lot of smart passes. He's actually does have a negative wingspan. He's a couple inches too shorter. I don't know if that really.
You are not drafting him to be a defender.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, like, also, I don't know if that affects his ability to shoot at the next level, but you also have guys like Desmond Bane who do have that shorter wingspan who can knock down that shot. I'm not saying they're the same level of prospect because Bane definitely had far superior ball skills. But I mean, you're not drafting Brea to be a guy that's going to play make for you. You're literally drafting him to score off easy cuts and recognize like when like someone's closing out hard or just literally to find someone in space to floor.
High level shooter, and that's what I thought. Jordan, my notes say the exact same thing. High level shooter, and you're drafting him to shoot the ball. And there's so many teams that can use spacing. He is that player. Granted, I think at his size, Jacob, to your point, will the wingspan kind of affect his ability to get his shot off? I think that just depends on how fast he gets it off. If between the end of the season and heading up into coming into the draft, if his shot release is much cleaner now than it already was, I think that's one of the reasons that we see him maybe creep. And I do mean creep at 30, like where a team is like, I'm taking a swing on this.
He feels very tweener-ish to me is the problem. Right. Like he plays like a power forward, but he has the size of a two guard. And so that's the problem is that if he was 2 inches taller, we're having a completely different discussion.
We are.
And we're talking about him later this weekend if he's 2 inches taller.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I actually have him listed as a forward anyway. So that's for that reason. Like I think that he plays forward. Whether or not he's going to be big enough to defend forwards is the question.
Agreed. It's crazy because, again, I think some of defense is also positioning, lateral quickness plus positioning. Like, how can you position yourself between the offensive player from getting to their spot and using your body in a way where you force them to make a different decision? if he can do some of that at his size, then that pluses the shooting and his ability on the floor. And that's a to be determined kind of thing. And it really just depends on where he ends up getting drafted. I really am intrigued. I think he's not a question mark in some of the other ways that we've had question marks on the other guys, but just like what team is going to prioritize his shooting so much that they're going to draft him much earlier than we thought. To me, this next guy is also, I don't know. I'm saying I don't know because I did some scouting on him, but I wasn't sure. And that's RJ Lewis.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I could go either way on him. Like,
good score.
I see, and I kind of think like the stats don't show his value. Like, I actually thought he did a lot better on the non-scoring stuff than the stats showed. So I kind of like my comp for him is Keith Bogans. Like, I feel like he does a lot of little things, but they're not always going to show up in the stat sheet. In my opinion. So I kind of like him as a two-way guy. Like I'm pretty intrigued with him as a two-way guy because I think you want that kind of a shooting guard as an option to be either on your bench or in the actual Keith Bogans role of like starting for the first 4 minutes of every half and then not actually playing. But I don't see the upside that some of the other guys have. So that's kind of where I'm at with him. Like, I don't dislike him, but I'm not really, there's nothing that makes you like love him, but there's also nothing that turns you off of him.
Right.
I was surprised he stayed in the draft, to be honest, because he was.
Yeah, I really thought he was leaving.
He was like the first guy to enter the transfer portal, but he also did say he was entering the draft. But since we've seen him, like he just hasn't looked good the past couple of appearances. I thought he had one of the poorer combines. I thought if anything he fell because of it. I don't think he was as assertive as he should have been. And obviously against that Arkansas team when he went 3 for 17 shooting wise, and the three ball was just not falling whatsoever, and he got benched by Patino. So he hasn't really been seeing the greatest light the past couple of appearances. But again, like you see a guy who's hard nosed, he gets downhill fast and strong. He has a nice touch in the mid range. He's probably one of the better mid range creators in this draft. But the question really is he going to be assertive on the defensive end, and is he going to make his shots? If not, I don't really see a role in him.
I think the rim percentage is interesting also. Is it 70%? Was his rim percentage?
I think so. It was really high.
So off dunks, it was 92.9%. And at the rim as general finishes, it was 55.7% off 237 attempts.
Okay.
I thought it was higher than that.
Yeah, me too. I'm intrigued, and I'm wondering. You mentioned two-way guy. I agree with that for sure. I just don't know that he gets drafted directly. Now I do think
I'm also not seeing him on a lot of like big boards and stuff.
No.
Him and then my only honorable mention. Like I'm not actually seeing them on very many, so I'm wondering if I'm just higher than consensus on them.
I think Grizzlies are a place he could end up.
Great
just
fit.
because, especially because of what they did with Wells. Now, granted, I do think Wells is a completely different prospect than him.
Yeah.
Very different play style, very different. Wells
as a prospect was completely different than Wells now. Like,
he
was like an offensive guy, and then Wells comes in and is like an incredible defender. Like, I'm not really sure what happened there, but I personally did not see Wells being this good of a defender in the NBA.
No, me either. Let's move to Micah Peavy out of TCU.
Are these just like honorable mentions?
These were like the last three guys that we had on that list that were like they got some votes to be. So how we did this was that I sent a Google form out. 3 of us filled it out, and I just basically took what the weighted average, like the average placement for each guy was. And RJ Lewis was the 10. The 10 guys we just said. RJ Lewis, Kobe Bryant, Bryce Williams, Jameer Watkins, Powell, Gonzalez, McNeely, Coward, Clifford, Knipple, 10-1. But then the rest of the guys we're talking about, Micah Peavy, I believe John Tanji, whatever how you pronounce his name, And was there any in Adama Ball Jordan definitely wants to talk about?
Yeah. So PV is fine. I'll be honest, I didn't really even gather my notes for Tanjay. But PV is fine. Like, I think that, he's I don't have him drafted, but I also would be pretty happy as a team to get him on a two-way. Like, he's one of those guys for me. Ball is the one that I'm kind of confused because, like, I don't see him on any boards, and I don't know why. I think he's an excellent defender. I think he's a very good cutter. I think he has some very good offensive upside. I think he's going to have a multi-year career in the NBA. I'm very confused why he's not higher on boards.
Screams Spurs to me.
I mean, the Mavs have brought him in for a workout, and it seems like the only people that the Mavs are working out are, like, so far have been people that are going undrafted. So he seems to not think he's getting drafted. Like, I'm very confused. I have him 50. Like, I really like him. I'm very confused why he's not higher on boards. But Adama Ball is, to me, really good. I mean, probably some of that is just based off of his last name and his first name. I think he's probably from West Africa, so maybe that's my bias coming in. So I think he's probably from Mali, if I had to guess, based off of his name. So I am very confused. I mean, he's obviously French citizenship, but so I'm saying his family is probably from Mali. So I'm just very surprised. I really think
his best skill is ball handling, from what I've seen. He just has the ability to handle the ball, which is intriguing. His wingspan is not negative, actually. It's 6'11". So he has tools that you to your point.
He's only 21. He's only so, like, I really don't understand. There's not very many. I mean, he's not like an incredible shooter, but he's not terrible at shooting. Like, I'm really confused why he's not on boards, because I think he's a very good defender. I think the guy he reminds me the most of is, like, Justin Holiday, and he had a productive career. Like, I'm not saying that he's going to be a star or anything, but I'm very confused.
And as this obviously this is relative. I do think that's his best skill from what he shows, and based on the other guys that we've talked about, I can't imagine that I would say that he's a better shooter. I don't think he's a better defender than some of the other guys you mentioned, in that he has a key skill that's exemplary above the other guys. But from the perspective of him not being on any boards at all, a guy who's 6'7" with a 6'11" wingspan, I do think he can handle the ball relatively well. Go ahead, Jake.
I think I'm very comfortably higher on him than Williams and RJ Lewis. Like, so that's why I'm very confused what I'm seeing differently than everybody else. Because I would much rather have him than Williams or Lewis. Barea, obviously, I'd rather have Barea, but
he's been in the draft cycle conversation for 2 years now.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I remember when I was scouting I feel like when I was scouting Wembanyama and all those guys that year, I remember, like, looking at him in the second round, and from what I've seen, I just don't think he's gotten that much better as a player. I think the ball handling it's fine. I don't know if it's going to be completely functional at an NBA level. I think he has the tools, but the rest of the things for him are going to be a lot of ifs. So he's just, to me, is a two-way guy that some team's going to take a flyer on to throw in the G League for a little bit.
Agreed.
I'm personally really hoping he goes to the Mavs. I think he's an excellent fit for what we like with our two-way guys. So, yeah.
Now, guys, thanks for all who came to watch. We talked wings. Please watch it back. Tell us your thoughts. Give us your comments, opinions. We love the feedback.
The fun one is coming next.
The forwards and yeah, I made this disclaimer earlier. Wings and forwards separate, not the same. And I think that's where we're going to have the most interesting conversation as it pertains to what the skill level is. And I think we've said in passing that maybe
this is a forward draft.
But this is a forward draft if there was one. And I'm intrigued to see what it all plays out as far as draft. We already know who's going number one. So outside of him, out of Cooper Flag, I am intrigued to see what it looks like as far as wings, as forward selection. So
I think forwards and bigs is probably where we're gonna have the most disagreement.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure.
Like
I guarantee on bigs we're gonna have major disagreement.
yeah, I feel like when we're gonna probably need a little bit more contributions from everyone else to fill in the list, so we know exactly what the order's gonna be.
Yeah, for sure. But thanks for watching. Look out for the forwards and the bigs. Excited to do that. Draft is relatively soon. Like we're a week away, truthfully, and some change.
Wild.
So keep your eyes open. We're going to be ramping up the content, and we're excited to share a whole bunch of thoughts with you. And hit us back. Peace.
See ya.